At 28 years old, Amanda Blackburn had a unique talent for finding beauty in things others had thrown away. She spent her time scouring garage sales all over Indianapolis, hunting for what most people would consider junk. Things like old furniture, broken tables, and worn-out chairs. She would load her finds into her car, haul them home, and meticulously transform them into treasures. This passion became her business, which she named Weathered Willow. But for Amanda, it was so much more than that. It was a core part of her philosophy on life. Her father, Phil, put it this way: God turns trash into treasure. Nothing is ever wasted. Amanda applied this belief not just to furniture, but to people as well. Her husband, Davy, recalled her incredible gift for seeing the potential in people, potential that they often couldn't see in themselves. She loved the unlovable and offered hope to the hopeless. Everyone who knew her said the same thing. Amanda didn't have a single enemy in the world. She was born Amanda Grace Byers on July 31, 1987, in Muskegon, Michigan. She grew up in Elkhart, Indiana, with her 4 adopted siblings. After her parents, Phil and Robin Byers, moved the family there when Amanda was just 8 years old. Her father, Phil, served as the pastor at the First Baptist Church of Elkhart, and faith was the bedrock of their family life. Amanda went on to graduate from Elkhart Christian Academy in 2006. From there, she attended Pensacola Christian College in Florida, where she earned an associate's degree in 2008. She began a career as a kindergarten teacher, first at Promise Academy in Nashville, and later at St. Mary's Episcopal School in Memphis, which was known as one of Tennessee's top all-girls schools. By all accounts, she absolutely adored her job and her students. In videos she created for her class, her warm, nurturing energy is impossible to miss. It was during this time that she met Davy Blackburn on a blind date at a Hawk Nelson concert. That night, during a milkshake drinking contest, Amanda laughed so hard she blew milkshake out of her nose. Davy would later tell his church congregation, "That was the moment I knew I had met the girl I was going to marry." The two were married on August 1, 2008, and were known for being remarkably open about their relationship. In videos posted for their church just 1 month before she died, they openly discussed the real challenges young couples face, including the topic of sexual intimacy. Amanda emphasized its importance, stating that sexual intimacy is so important in a marriage, and that the devil is going to do whatever he can to tear you away from that. They also spoke candidly about the importance of date nights and the work it takes to keep a marriage strong. Then, in January of 2012, Amanda and Davy moved to Indianapolis, driven by a dream and a sense of calling. Their mission was to start a life-giving church. Together, they co-founded Resonate Church, launching with an initial congregation of about 150 people. Their main focus was to reach individuals who normally wouldn't feel comfortable in a traditional church setting. Amanda poured her entire heart and soul into this work. She became a key figure in the 4Indie movement, a mission aimed at making a positive, Christ-centered impact on the city of Indianapolis. By November of 2015, their family had expanded. They were now parents to a 15-month-old son named Weston, and Amanda was expecting their second child, a daughter they had already decided to name Evie Grace. At the time, Amanda was between 12 and 13 weeks along in her pregnancy. On November 9, 2015, Amanda spent the day at a park, on the grounds of the Traders Point Christian Church with her sister, Amber, as they watched the children play. They laughed and talked, with Amber later recalling, "We had so much fun. The kids played and we just laughed and talked." That would be the last time Amber saw her sister alive. The very next day, November 10, 2015, while it was still dark outside around 4 in the morning, 3 men were already up and moving. 18-year-old Larry Joe Taylor Jr., which was known as one of Tennessee's top all-girls schools. By all accounts, she absolutely adored her job and her students. In videos she created for her class, they called their crew the Kill Gang, and all 3 had extensive criminal records. All 3 were currently on parole and living together at the Westlake Apartments, on the west side of Indianapolis. For days, they had been on a violent crime spree. On November 3, just a week earlier, Taylor and Watson had broken into the apartment of a 21-year-old woman, right there at the Westlake Apartments. Around 10 at night, she was in the shower. Suddenly, the bathroom light went out. She peeked around the shower curtain and was confronted by a man pointing a gun at her. Taylor then pressed the weapon to the back of her neck. The men demanded money and her bank cards, and then Taylor proceeded to violate her. While this was happening, Watson ransacked the apartment, stealing valuables. Watson allegedly told Taylor to stop, saying that wasn't what they had come there to do. They ultimately took her cell phone, laptop, television, jewelry, headphones, purse, and her 2007 Chrysler Sebring. Something spooked them, causing them to flee the apartment. The following day, November 4th, Taylor shot and killed Rolando Gonzalez Hernandez at the La Goya Apartments during a botched robbery. The victim had only $10 on him. For that, Taylor shot him in the head. 3 witnesses later informed police that Taylor had personally admitted to robbing and shooting someone at the apartment complex. But on this morning, November 10th, they were on the hunt once again. At approximately 4 a.m., they selected their first target of the day, a home in the cottages of Full Creek, in the 5700 block of San Clemente Drive, on Indianapolis's east side. A resident was asleep inside. They slipped in through a patio door and began taking a laptop, a purse, an iPhone, car keys, credit cards, and a computer, a cell phone, and a silver Chrysler Sebring. But they hit a major snag. A motion-activated security camera had snagged images of all 3 suspects right before they cut the feed. Taylor wanted to neutralize the sleeping resident because he knew they'd been caught on camera. Watson and Gordon talked him down and they all bolted. At 5 a.m., the first victim called 9. A resident was asleep inside. They slipped in through a patio door and began taking a laptop, a purse, had snagged images of all 3 suspects right before they cut the feed. They took out the security camera, then forced their way in through a patio window. They made off with 3 to 4 TVs, a laptop, jewelry, a bag of oranges, some bed sheets, and a pink sweater. They helped themselves to beer and wine from the home, then loaded the TVs into the trunk of the stolen Sebring. According to official court documents, the crew decided they still wanted more cash. 2830 Sunnyfield Court, Amanda and Davy Blackburn's home, was on the very same street, directly across from the house they had just robbed. At around 6 a.m., Davy Blackburn left his family's home at 2826, then loaded the TVs into the trunk of the stolen Sebring. According to official court documents, a bag of oranges, some bed sheets, and a pink sweater. They helped themselves to beer and wine from the home. The couple only had one house key, and it was on Amanda's keyring. It was a small detail that would prove to be catastrophic. A bag of oranges, some bed sheets, and a pink sweater. They helped themselves to beer and wine from the home. He made the call to target the Blackburn home. All 3 walked right in through the unlocked front door. Inside, they came face to face with Amanda. Taylor pistol-whipped her in the mouth with his .38 caliber revolver. The impact of the blow knocked out one of her lower front teeth. He then took her ATM cards, handed them to Watson and Gordon, who took off in the stolen Sebring to withdraw money. Taylor was now alone with Amanda at just 6 a.m. Cell phone tower data later confirmed the suspects' phones were pinging on Sunnyfield Court at exactly 6 a.m. Watson and Gordon arrived at a Chase Bank ATM on North Michigan Road. They attempted to pull $500 using Amanda's debit card. The transaction was declined. An ATM receipt with this exact timestamp was later discovered inside the stolen vehicle. Back at the house, Taylor got on the phone with Watson and Gordon, yelling because he felt they were taking too long. He gave them the correct PIN for the account. Watson would later testify about what happened next. Taylor told them he had tried to force himself on Amanda. When she refused and fought back, he shot her once, somewhere in her upper body so she couldn't scratch him. As she lay there wounded, he shot her a second time in the back of the head. Then, according to a witness, Taylor leaned in closer, stared at her face, and just watched her bleed. At 6 a.m., a neighbor heard what they thought were gunshots. At that same time, Watson and Gordon were at a completely different Chase Bank ATM. On West 86th Street, they managed to withdraw $400. Watson then wrapped the stolen pink sweater around his face, attempting to hide his identity from the security cameras. It was a move that would ultimately doom their case. Just 9 minutes later, a witness spotted a man dressed all in black walking down the street, talking on his phone. Then, at 7 a.m., security cameras captured footage of a male suspect, leaving the Blackburn neighborhood, walking down the street in a hooded sweatshirt, with the hood pulled down tight to hide his face. Meanwhile, Watson and Gordon picked Taylor up from the subdivision. As Taylor slid into the car, he chillingly told them, "I smoked her." At 6 a.m., a neighbor heard what they thought were gunshots. At that same time, Watson and Gordon were at a completely different Chase Bank ATM. Just 9 minutes later, a witness spotted a man dressed all in black walking down the street. He stayed in his car, finishing the call, for about 40 to 50 minutes. not wanting to wake his pregnant wife and their toddler son. Also, at 7 a.m., Chase Bank left a voicemail on Amanda's phone, flagging potentially fraudulent ATM activity. At 8 a.m., the neighbor at 2830 Sunnyfield Court discovered their home had been burglarized and called the police. Just 3 minutes later, Davy finally went inside his house, only to find Amanda face down, unclothed from the waist down, lying in a pool of her own blood near the fireplace and their Christmas tree. Her underwear was on the floor beside her, and her shirt had been forced up as if someone had tried to rip it off her body. Her credit cards and wallet were scattered across the floor, and a nearby decorative ladder and a lamp had been knocked over. A Swisher Sweet cigar package sat on the kitchen counter, an item Davy confirmed was not theirs. Miraculously, their 15-month-old son, Weston, was found upstairs, safe and completely unharmed in his crib. At 8 a.m., a frantic Davy called 911 for help. He reported that Amanda was unconscious, unresponsive, and bleeding heavily from gunshot wounds. Paramedics were dispatched at 8 a.m., and upon seeing the severity of Amanda's injuries, they immediately requested police backup. Officers Richard Crosby and Larry Crow arrived on the scene at 8 a.m. He reported that Amanda was unconscious, unresponsive, and bleeding heavily from gunshot wounds. She was immediately placed on a ventilator, listed in critical condition. At 9:01 a.m., paramedics rushed Amanda to Indiana University Health Methodist Hospital. Detective Pete Perkins was sent to Methodist Hospital to interview Davy about the timeline of events and the circumstances of the attack. She was taken off life support roughly 24 hours after the brutal home invasion. Tragically, both Amanda and her unborn daughter, Evie Grace, died on November 12th. The Marion County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy, which was performed by the county medical examiner, Dr. Ellen Clark. Her examination revealed that Amanda had suffered 3 distinct gunshot wounds. The first was a shot to the back of her head, which was determined to be the fatal wound. A second gunshot wound was found in her lower left arm, with the bullet traveling up into her bicep, and a third was a through-and-through wound that entered and exited her upper left back. Investigators also noted scratches on her left cheek. The first was a shot to the back of her head, which was determined to be the fatal wound. A split lip, and that her lower front tooth had been knocked out from being struck with the firearm. The official cause of death was the gunshot wound to her head, and the manner of death was ruled a homicide. Prosecutors later stated there was insufficient evidence to bring formal sexual assault charges. Despite the state she was discovered in partially undressed with signs suggesting a sexual assault, that he had attempted to sexually assault her right before he shot her. Police processed the Blackburn crime scene twice. In Amanda's case, however, Taylor's own statements to his accomplices indicated, between the 10th and 11th of November, to ensure absolute thoroughness. Investigators quickly eliminated Davy Blackburn as a suspect by using surveillance footage from an LA fitness gym, which confirmed his alibi, along with phone records corroborating the timeline and a total lack of any incriminating evidence. On November 11th, at around 10:30 p.m., the silver Chrysler Sebring stolen on the morning of the 10th was finally located on Rockwood Avenue, roughly 7 miles from the Blackburn home. Inside, detectives discovered critical evidence, including the pink sweater, bed sheets, which confirmed his alibi, along with phone records corroborating the timeline and a total lack of any incriminating evidence. The bag of oranges, an AT&T Verse remote, and ATM receipts, one of which showed the denied $500 withdrawal. They released surveillance images to the public showing a suspect leaving the neighborhood. Police Captain Craig Converse stated, "We know who killed her. At least we have a picture of him, but we don't know the name." Commander Eric Hench then issued a stark warning directly to the suspect. "To the individual who committed this crime, you are not as good as you think you are. You left behind evidence. We have found it. We will find you, and we will not stop until we get you." Chief Rick Height emphatically added, "We're coming to get you." The big break in the case came from DNA evidence recovered from the pink sweater found in the stolen vehicle. This sweater had been used by one of the suspects to hide his face during the attempted ATM withdrawals. When the DNA was run through the CODIS database, it came back as a match for Jalen Watson. Prosecutor Terry Curry called this the first major breakthrough in the case. Cell phone tower data placed Watson's phone moving from the first East Side burglary to Sunnyfield Court, right at 6 a.m., and then on to both Chase Bank ATMs. At the same time, Gordon's phone was pinged, making calls to an unknown number located on Sunnyfield Court. Investigators traced that unknown number, connected to the ATM runs, through backpage ads straight to a man named Larry Taylor. The failed $500 withdrawal attempt and the successful $400 withdrawal created an undeniable digital timeline of their movements. Detectives also managed to track stolen items from the November 3rd assault to buyers located near 56th Street. On November 19th, day 10 of the investigation, these buyers positively identified Watson and Taylor from photo lineups. With this evidence, all three men were brought into custody, and DNA swabs were taken. Watson and Gordon were immediately arrested on parole violations, while Taylor was questioned and then temporarily released. In the interrogation room, both Watson and Gordon confessed to the burglaries and pointed the finger at Taylor as the one who pulled the trigger. They recounted Taylor's chilling confession that he had smoked her and then stayed to watch her die. Taylor, for his part, waived his Miranda rights, claiming he was only looking for someone named Cheese and was too intoxicated to recall the events. Then, on the 22nd and 23rd of November, the crucial DNA confirmation came back from the lab. Watson's DNA was a direct match to evidence found on the pink sweater. Combined with cell records and witness statements, prosecutors finally had everything they needed to move forward. On Sunday night, November 22nd, a joint force of the Indianapolis Police Department's Violent Crimes Unit, gang units, and U.S. Marshals descended on a relative's home on Meridian Street and arrested Taylor. The next day, November 23rd, prosecutor Terry Curry announced the formal charges. Taylor and Watson were officially charged with murder, while Gordon was held on a parole violation. He wasn't immediately charged with murder, as evidence showed he never entered the Blackburn home. Curry stated, "I don't believe any of the victims were specifically targeted, but were instead random victims of incredibly violent crimes. Amanda was tragically in the wrong place at the wrong time, home by herself when three men, fresh off a second burglary, decided they wanted more." The entire Indianapolis community rallied in support of the Blackburn family, as the case was officially solved in just 13 days. Officers on the case had reportedly worked for days without sleep. Amanda's father, Phil Byers, shared with reporters, "She's the love of my life. She unapologetically gave her entire self to God. I want to be like that. I want to be more like Amanda." Amanda was laid to rest at Hamilton Memorial Park, in Noblesville, alongside her unborn daughter, whom they had named Evie Grace Blackburn. In the wake of the arrests, her husband Davy Blackburn released a statement, saying, "Though everything inside of me wants to hate, be angry, and slip into despair, I am choosing the path of forgiveness, grace, and hope. If there is one thing I've learned from Amanda, in the 10 years we were together, it's this: choosing a response not driven by my emotions is a path toward a hopeless and fruitless life. Today, I am making the choice to love, not hate." Meanwhile, Watson and Gordon decided to take plea deals. They both pleaded guilty to robbery and burglary, and in exchange, agreed to testify against Taylor. Taylor's case dragged on for years, resulting in 2 mistrials before finally proceeding to a bench trial. During the trial, Watson and Gordon testified that Taylor had stayed behind with Amanda while they went to use the ATMs. They claimed that when they got back, he told them, "I smoked her," admitting he had tried to sexually assault Amanda. When she fought back, he shot her. Davy also took the stand, testifying about the unlocked door and how he had been sitting in the driveway on his phone, only to walk inside and find Amanda face down. In the end, Taylor was found guilty and sentenced to 86 years in prison. In his statement, Davy said, "I lost my rock, my best friend, and my first love." In a remarkable display of grace, Amanda's family offered Taylor their forgiveness. Later, Taylor also pleaded guilty to the earlier rape charge, adding another 20 years to his sentence for a total of 106 years. His appeal was denied, and he is currently incarcerated at the Miami Correctional Facility. Watson received a sentence of 10 years plus 5 years of home detention and has since been released. Gordon was sentenced to 30 years, with 25 to be served in prison, followed by 5 years of probation. He offered an apology to Davy and is currently serving his time. Just 2 days after Amanda's death, Davy registered the domain name nothingiswasted.net. Then, 2.5 months later, Taylor also pleaded guilty to the earlier rape charge, adding another 20 years to his sentence for a total of 106 years. My best friend and my first love. In a remarkable display of grace, Amanda's family offered Taylor their forgiveness. He sold the family home where Amanda was killed for $145,000 in March 2016, and then purchased a new, larger home, 5,186 square feet, with a pool under the business name NIW. Serendipity LLC. In September of 2016, just 11 months after Amanda's death, Davey met a woman named Christy Monroe at his gym, L.A. Fitness, the very same gym he had visited the morning Amanda was killed. Christy was a single mother with a daughter named Natalia, and the two began dating after the one-year anniversary of Amanda's passing. In a remarkable twist, Christy's stepfather happened to be a chaplain for the Marion County prison system. He had actually had conversations with Amanda's killers, creating an unbelievable and personal connection to the tragedy. Davey would later reflect on this, saying, "How kind is it of God that of 7 billion people in this world, he would write something so personal to me." On December 17, 2017, roughly 2 years after Amanda's passing, Davey and Christy were married in a ceremony at Laurel Hall in Indianapolis. The marriage was celebrated with the full blessing of Amanda's family. Their new blended family eventually included Natalia, Weston, and Cohen, who was Davey and Christy's son together. Then, in January of 2018, Davey resigned from his position at Resonate Church, so he could focus on his Nothing is Wasted ministry. Just 1 week later, in January of 2019, Resonate Church shut its doors for good, $73,000 in debt, with only $38,000 in cash on hand. Roughly 75 people showed up for the final service, and many of them were upset about how the finances had been handled. The interim pastor, John Barry, admitted, "We were not good stewards of what we had." While no allegations of misusing funds ever surfaced, the church openly acknowledged its poor financial stewardship. Davey would later reveal that he knew the church was on the brink of closure before he resigned, a fact he kept from the congregation. He then went on to found Nothing is Wasted Ministries with Christy, an organization designed to help people navigate trauma, tragedy, and major life transitions. Through the ministry, they produce podcasts, offer classes, and host retreats. Davey became a familiar face on national television, making appearances on shows like Good Morning America, Inside Edition, and even Investigation Discovery's On the Case with Paula Zahn. Then, in July of 2024, he released a book titled Nothing is Wasted, a true story of hope, forgiveness, and finding purpose in pain. He had actually finished the manuscript back in 2017, but its publication was intentionally delayed until all the legal trials were over. But not everyone was on board from the start. In fact, online speculation about Davey began to swirl almost immediately. People demanded to know why the front door had been left unlocked, and why he'd waited in the driveway for 40 to 50 minutes before finally going inside. For some, his surprisingly calm demeanor during interviews was deeply unsettling. Others were critical of how quickly he seemed to embrace the media spotlight, particularly the live tweeting of Amanda's funeral, using the hashtag #NothingIsWasted, which drew intense criticism. The ministry's domain name being registered just 2 days after her death also raised a lot of eyebrows, and when the LLC was registered only 2.5 months later, it struck some as being incredibly calculated. His decision to remarry just 2 years after Amanda's passing felt too soon for many critics, and the fact that he met his new wife at the very same gym he was at on the morning of the murder just added to their suspicions. Online armchair detectives dissected every single detail: his predictable daily schedule, the gym alibi that seemed a little too perfect, and even old church videos where the couple had openly discussed their relationship and intimacy just 1 month before she was gone. To some, his subsequent book and ministry looked like an attempt to profit from a terrible tragedy. But in the end, every single one of these suspicions was methodically and definitively disproven. Surveillance footage from the LA Fitness provided a time-stamped, ironclad alibi of his whereabouts. His phone records corroborated his entire timeline, and cell tower data confirmed he was nowhere near the scene of the crime. Investigators found no motive. By all accounts, their relationship was a loving one, and a second baby was on the way. Most importantly, the confessions from the actual killers never once implicated Davey. The 3 men were confirmed to be on a random, violent crime spree. The established timeline made his involvement a physical impossibility, leading the Indianapolis Police Department to officially clear him as a suspect within days. By combing through surveillance footage and phone records. Even so, questions continued to swirl within online communities. Amanda Blackburn was 28 years old, a kindergarten teacher, a devoted wife, and a mother. A woman who saw beauty in broken things and believed that nothing was ever a waste. On the morning of November 10, 2015, 3 men brought her world to a violent end. Her family recalls a smile that radiated pure joy, energy, and comfort. and she meant so much to so many people. Now, the lives of everyone who loved her are a little less bright. Amanda Grace Blackburn, taken far too soon, but she will never be forgotten.